So as Kenny said, I'm Amanda Anthony. I am the program manager for the North County Business Resource Center. It is part of Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center. I am sorry because I talk pretty fast, which is the other reason why I think it's important to record. We're going to be talking about starting an Etsy business today, but I do want to emphasize that this isn't only about Etsy. This pretty much applies to any craft business. I do think that Etsy provides a nice opportunity for entrepreneurs to start their businesses. And I think it provides a nice platform that is easy to navigate for people who are maybe not so tech savvy. But the lessons that we're learning in our classes, especially on today and on February 14th, so we get to spend Valentine's Day together. These are really applicable for anybody who has a craft business that is selling on Shopify or Wix or anything. I think the most important thing that I want you to take away from this 3 weeks is you can't just be really good at making something. You do need to be good at making something, but you also need to be good at selling something. Just making something and putting it on the platform is not going to cut it. I can't tell you how many shops I have been to because I scroll Instagram a lot. I've been looking for examples just for ideas that you go to their Etsy shop, you know, and they've got a nice Instagram and maybe they're selling through Instagram primarily, but you go to their Etsy shop and they have 0 sales. And they have 5 different products and 0 sales. So you have to ask yourself, okay, at that point, maybe it's a hobby, right? Maybe this isn't a business. And that's okay, right? You may decide that this is a side hustle that you want to monetize, and you may decide that it's a side hustle you don't want to monetize. So through the 3 weeks, what I really want to focus on is being prepared to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, hey, Amanda, sorry. Can I just jump in really quick?
Yeah.
So we aren't planning on having a question and answer segment at the end. So if you have a question, you can just type it in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, so will Amanda, and we'll address those questions throughout the program.
Perfect. Thanks. So I want you to prepare to be an entrepreneur, right? Even if you only want to do this as a side business, like you have your own full-time job or your full-time job is taking care of your children, and you want to make a little bit of money on the side, I want you to do it right. I think the most important thing, and there's a big change in the law this year, that in the past, if you had a business online and you were selling through Venmo, you were selling through Etsy, I'm not, to sell through Venmo, but you collect payments through Venmo. You're selling through Instagram and collecting payments on Venmo. You're selling on Etsy. You're selling on any sort of third-party site. It used to be that you had to make $20,000 before that site or that payment processor would have to report it to the IRS. Starting this year, it's $600. So even if you're doing this only a little bit, the tax man will know, right? And so that's the other reason why I really want you to understand what the implications of that are, but also how to do business the right way if you're going to choose to do a business. So we're going to talk about being an entrepreneur. We're going to talk about what sets you apart from the thousands of other sellers on Etsy or on your own platform. We're going to understand the rules and regulations of operating on Etsy, which are generally applicable to other platforms. And we're going to learn how to value and market your products, right? I can't tell you exactly how much to charge, but I can give you the framework for how to understand how to value your time. Okay. In the first week, we're going to be talking about mindset. We're going to be defining your unique value proposition and starting to define your customer segment, your buyer persona, right? The second week, we'll talk about Etsy itself. But not only that, we'll really be talking about defining your channels and doing some goal setting. And then finally in class 3, we'll be reaching our target audience. So taking all those pieces of buyer persona and channels and customers and products and putting it all together and saying, okay, this is how I'm going to get in front of the person I want to buy my product, right? I do want you to participate. If I ask you to do an assignment or if I ask you to do an exercise, I would like for you to do it in class, because that way it is a good use of your time. You're already here. If you are unable to do it, I really encourage you to spend the time afterwards to do it. If you want to put on your video, that's great. I really won't be able to see you because I'm looking at a monitor with one data and then notes in the other one. And it's also being recorded, so I know that some people get shy. But if you do talk, I would love to hear from you while seeing your face. And so, yeah, I do encourage you to participate. If you can't show your video, like I know Cynthia said that she doesn't have a microphone even, that's fine. Just put it in the chat and we'll talk about it. If you are ready to think about this a little bit more deeply, this course also includes a one-on-one entrepreneurship coaching session. And I will put, oh shoot, I didn't want to do that. Shoot, hold on a second, let me share my screen again. And I didn't want to stop sharing my slideshow. I will put that in the chat. If you are interested, you can fill out a little form. Didn't mean to put that in here. Okay. So if you are interested in a consultation, you don't have to tell me today. We can do this on another week too. All right. So without further ado, let's continue on with what we're talking about. As Kenny said, I'm the program manager. I used to own my own creative business. It was a paint your own pottery studio. So not only did I try to get people to come into my studio and paint, I also painted and had my employees paint for sale. So we did a lot of creative business and creative marketing. Before I came to the Bay Area, I was also a teacher, an education administrator, and I would call it an efficiency geek. So I'm really excited to help you reach your goals. So our first thing that I really want you to think about, and this is our first opportunity for participation, is thinking about why you want to be an entrepreneur. Like, why did you come to this class? What made you think, you know what, today's the day that I'm going to turn my hobby, my skill into a side hustle, or I'm at least thinking about it. All right. So just entrepreneurship generally, not your specific business idea, right? Like, why are you beginning this journey? What benefits do you hope to experience? I'd love to hear from you because we've got only 8 people. So I think right now we can have a really nice chat. Anybody want to share?
I can share.
Great.
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and my hobby turned business is beadwork. And I don't know, I started beading as a kind of like escape from like the pandemic starting, and I lost my job and all of that stuff. And it helped me connect to my culture and connect to other beaders. And I joined a beading circle. It's just like it's something that encourages people to like join the community, you know, like if you like your beaded earrings that you bought from me, then follow me and I'll like give you a beading kit, you know, it's that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the kind of like why I'm beginning the journey, and also the benefit as well, because it's a very inclusive way to support myself, I guess.
I like that. So it's really about building community for you, not only building a business.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right. And Cynthia says she has an Etsy shop, but she's having trouble reaching buyers. She makes handmade one-of-a-kind clothing and knitted items. She has an Instagram and Facebook business account, but not sure how to use them in Etsy to the fullest. And Cynthia, if you want to put in the chat, you know, why did you start it? Is it because you really loved making clothing? Is it because you just had a whole bunch of knitted items sitting around and you're like, you know what, I got to do something with this? Because my friend is a professional quilter and she has like 1 million quilts. And I'm like, why are you not selling these? She's like, I would never make enough money for them. Like, but you have 80 quilts at your house now, right? Like at some point you're gonna have to sell them, right? She's like, well, maybe. She sells quilt patterns, so that's not her business, right? Anybody else want to chat? Steph? Latifa?
Sure. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm Latifa. I make nature prints. So they're botanical prints basically.
Mhm.
And I put myself on Instagram and I have a really small following and I sometimes do shows, but sometimes some people ask me like, do you sell these? And I never really put it together to
Mhm.
sell. So I'm just thinking maybe I should, and through Etsy.
Cool. That's great. All right. Steph?
Yeah. Okay. I started making mask like
Ah.
2 years ago when
Mhm.
the pandemic started, and then I got like a pieces, designers fabric, for like upcycle whatever purpose,
Mhm.
and it's very pretty. So I started making linen bags, and then when my daughter, she keeps saying, "Mom, this linen bag is in trendy, so you should make it." And whatever she started, she said, "You make it. I will sell for you."
All right.
Here
So
goes.
you're gonna have a partnership, right? So you're
Yeah,
thinking, okay, but I ought to
but
know so I
but once
can
she
keep
back
her in
to
check.
school, she forgot. I mean, she
Oh,
grabbed all my bags away, but that's why I'm here. So I
cool.
start myself. That's why.
Okay. And Cynthia says that she took sewing classes through SSF Parks and Recs. We have two sewists here.
Oh,
She's been knitting since the 4th grade. She was doing holiday craft boutiques and wanted to expand it. So it sounds like we have some very crafty people. I just learned how to crochet. So I'm pretty excited to hear about all these crafty people. I took a really cool sewing class. Actually, if you guys really want an idea for a business, there was this cool business in my town in Poland, and they were teaching people how to sew, but it was like 5 or 6 week classes. There was they had a set of sewing machines, so it's like the sewing classes through SSF Parks and Rec. But with Park and Rec, you have to already have your own sewing machine, right? Which you can borrow from the library, I found out. So in case you guys didn't know that, that is an option for many of our libraries here in the peninsula. You can borrow your sewing machine. Denise?
Hi, everyone. My name is Denise, and I just started thinking about selling my crafts. I actually had a full-time job for, I don't know, over 15 years, and I just got laid off. And through those 15 years, I've been making a lot of amigurumis. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Those are like little stuffed animals out of crochet.
Wow.
And I've been selling
I
those
have seen those, but I didn't know that's what they were called. They are
yeah,
so cute.
it's a Japanese type of craft.
Yeah.
So I've been selling those on the side for like baby showers and all that, and then for like friends and word of mouth. And also I've been doing a lot of like a lot of baby shower, gearing towards baby showers. So I've done a lot of bouquets, like onesie bouquets, like flower bouquets. I've been selling those. And so a lot of my friends are like, why don't you start an Etsy shop? I'm like, I have no time. I have a full-time job. I have no time for this. So, so now that I have the time, I thought maybe I should think about this seriously and see what's out, what I can do, what I can do with this. So I've done that. I've done knitting. I'm very crafty, and I've done beading as well, but it's more like beading figurines, like little animals. So I've been doing that as well. And yes,
okay, this is really exciting. You guys have some great business ideas, and I'm excited to have you along with this. So, what I think this class will do for you is really help you understand who is your person that you want to sell to most, right? Which is one of the biggest pieces of marketing and selling your business. I do hope that it will help you sort of start to formalize this, but insofar as you need more help, right, we can use that one-on-one consultation time to talk about the specific problem that you're having. So Cynthia, for you example, we can talk about what your Facebook shop looks like or your Instagram shop and see how does that look and how is it working. So let's dive in. Since a lot of you are exploring entrepreneurship for the very first time, I want you to tell me what makes a successful entrepreneur, right? Like, what does it mean to be a business owner in your mind?
Hi, I can talk.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I had a lot of people around me last time, and
Oh,
so
no, you're fine. You're totally fine.
I moved away.
By the way, I
Um,
see your granny square
Oh,
crochet
yeah,
thing there. That is cute.
yes, that's my, that's one of my, I do a lot of things. I do a crochet as well. I do sewing. I haven't tried beading. And then I make botanical arts, and I could probably find a piece somewhere to show you guys.
If not this week, next
Watercolor.
week. Okay.
Yeah, watercolor. So what makes a successful entrepreneur? I think someone who works really hard and at the end has this wonderful, easy business that's making money for them without without, you know, as much effort. Once they
Mhm.
become and reach that plane of success, when then becomes a little bit more of a passive process. But I totally understand that initially it's a real full-time, more than full-time job to get a business off the ground.
All right. So I'm hearing somebody who wants to work hard and likes working hard and doesn't mind that it's going to take some time. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it becoming self-sustaining, right? And then you can just focus on the crafting or the piece,
Exactly.
the piecework, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I think for me, adding on to what Latifat said, like passion and organization. My mom was like a single mom and had so many careers, and I think that the thing that I watched her struggle with was organization. But she did have that passion, so kind of for me, finding that balance.
Yeah, I think that's a really big important part, right? You do have to be organized as an entrepreneur, but if you spend too much time getting your systems in order, then it kind of becomes like a job again, right? And I think that that's one thing that people who are doing their own craft businesses really want to stay away from is, gosh, I don't want this to feel like work, right? I want this to continue to be fun, and it should be fun because it's a thing you love. Um, Yeah, I think those are really good points. If anybody else wants to share, please share in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going because Kenny actually has to be out 15 minutes early. So we'll end 15 minutes early today so that he can get out of the library before it closes. So what I see, and I think this is one thing that we drive home in every class that we teach with Renaissance, is the fixed versus growth mindset. So Carol Dweck is a psychologist at Stanford, and she's done a lot of work with this on kids. And especially in how people learn. So, not just how children learn, but also how adults learn and how people become more resilient, right? So, the fixed mindset is intelligence and ability are set in stone at birth, right? I was born smart, athletic, musical, or I wasn't. These things, they can't change, right? Versus the growth mindset, which is, well, intelligence and ability can be learned. I can always learn. Nothing in me is set in stone, and I can always improve. And I think what's really important about this is that it contributes to resilience because people who have the fixed mindset typically avoid challenges because they're like, well, if I'm not good at it, then why would I waste my time? Right? If I'm going to try really hard and if it's not going to look good, then I'm just not even going to bother. Right? If they have an idea and they say, I think this is a great idea, and somebody says, are you sure? They say, well, fine, I'm just not going to do it. Right? It's very much a non-resilient mindset, and it's also about looking at others and saying, well, how did they get that? Right? Not understanding that if you have this growth mindset, you're not going to feel a growth mindset every day. Some days you're just going to want to throw in the towel, right? But the growth mindset does say, okay, this is a challenge, but I'm going to try it. Or I have to take this away. Hey, Dawn.
Hello.
I'm going to keep going when this is difficult, right? I see effort as the key to mastery, right? So I think I mentioned that I just started learning how to crochet, and I was making a baby hat. And I'll be honest, this baby hat was supposed to be for a newborn. It was born 2 weeks ago. It is way too big for that baby's head, but the baby will grow into it. But I had to redo it 2 or 3 times because I was like, oh, I dropped another stitch. Oh, I got lost. Oh, this doesn't look good. And so that was a little bit frustrating. But I kept at it, and now I feel a little bit better about it. right? The growth mindset is also that we learn from and inspired by the success of others. So I'm really excited to see how many of you on this call have similar passions and similar interests. And I hope that by taking this class, you'll also build a community among each other. I think that's one of the things that I liked most about what you said, Alyssa, is, you know, I'm watching somebody else bead and I might learn from them that this is a cool new way to do that. Or how did you overcome this problem with your marketing, right? Learning from others and not feeling threatened because, well, I have to be the one who does success, who is successful, right? I think is a really important part of being a successful entrepreneur. All right. So as we're thinking about this, what I want to say is if you're not yet in the growth mindset, these tips will help you do it, right? First, you really have to acknowledge your weaknesses and create goals to improve on them. I just took this really interesting webinar about management of people, and it was really talking about starting from your strengths, right? And I think that you could start from your strengths, but if you're an entrepreneur, there's going to be weaknesses. And choosing how to address those weaknesses is important to how you build your business, right? Because you're saying, okay, is this something that I can grow at? Is this something I can grow at a pace that works for my business? Or should I hire somebody to do this because this just isn't my game? And saying that's okay. That's a weakness that I can't address or I don't want to address. I think that was a really hard piece for me as an early stage entrepreneur because I wasn't very good at marketing, and I certainly wasn't very good at Instagram, and I hacked at it for a couple years, and then I said, you know what, Amanda, if you're going to grow your business anymore, you need to be really good at this, and either you're going to have to put in the time to become really good at this, or you can hire somebody who's already really good at it. And I chose the latter, right? You may choose the former. You may choose to learn it. I chose to invest. All right. We learned to see challenges as opportunities. Okay. I have a big order due. They did this. I don't know what to do. Okay. What is my plan? How can I do this? Learn to accept setbacks and even failures. I think this is a really big piece. There are going to be people who disappoint you in entrepreneurship, who criticize your work. And that can feel really intimidating when it's your work, right? It's one thing when you maybe work for a corporation and your boss says you could do that better. That feels bad. But when you create this thing and it comes from your heart and from your hands, and somebody says, well, that's ugly, like how do you deal with that? And you just have to learn how to come back with, well, I don't care, right? Always be willing to try. Don't worry about what other people will say or think. This is really important. Like I said, you will need to build some resilience as an entrepreneur because some days will be harder than others. But you can't just say, forget it. I don't need that feedback, right? Your customers are your customers. And if they say, I need something that's X and Y and Z, and you're providing A and B and C, then that feedback can be really valuable for you. So you think about it and saying, okay, this is not an insult to me. It is telling me what I can do to reach my customer better. And then this is a piece that I was never very good at, but I do think is really important, which is to create time for daily reflection. So one of the things that came up a number of times with y'all is the desire to have passion and to really feel that passion in your work. And I think that making time to reflect on that on a daily basis will help you sustain that passion. Right? When I was doing the ceramics business, I loved it. There were some days that were really hard, but then you would see somebody's work and you would open the kiln and there would just be this beautiful plate and you're like, wow, I've built a place where people get to do this, right? And I'm sure it feels that same way when you're working on when people get their products and they're like, oh my God, this little crochet animal is so cute. And you have to write that word down for me in the chat because I don't know how to spell it, but I want to Google it because I would also like to learn how to crochet those. And mine will be not nearly as good as yours, but I would like to know how. All right. So with all of that said, even if you only do this on a part-time basis, right? I think that these are really important aspects to start internalizing if you're going to have a business is, how do I become resilient to criticism? How do I become resilient to failure? And how do I become resilient to the ups and downs of business? Right? I think right before the holidays, I've shared like a number of like quotes and the best business advice all of our consultants had received. And 3 of the 5 were literally like, if you fail, get back up and do it the next day. I was like, man, okay, apparently that is the takeaway of this year is like, you just got to keep on going. Amigurumi, okay. Okay, so with that said, let's move on to the biggest and most important thing that we're going to start with, which is your unique value proposition, right? This is like fancy MBA terms for what makes you different / better. All right. You don't have to invent something new, right? You don't have to come up with a new stitch. You don't have to, craft and design every bag, right? But you do have to differentiate yourself from the other thousands of peoples on the market, right? When I go to Etsy, I was looking for something because my husband's like, okay, this is really cute, but I'll just tell you. I am a hedgehog and he's a turtle, and we have all these little hedgehog and turtle figurines. So this is our first Christmas in the US, and I wanted to find Christmas ornaments with turtles and hedgehogs. And I went onto Etsy and Googled hedgehog ornament, turtle ornament. And I was like, oh my God, I can't even pick. And I was like, are these going to come to me and they're going to be really low quality? Are they going to be really high quality? What about this person who only has 3 sales? Like, are they going to get it to me in time? And I just was so overwhelmed by choosing that it was hard for me to choose. And so, how do you get in front of somebody like me who wants to buy a craft product and wants to see that this is made by hand by somebody who's doing this because they love it, and also cut through all the things that are hard to see? Okay, so you can differentiate yourself with an enhancement of an existing product or service. You can differentiate yourself on your price, but let me tell you, do not just assume that this means that you have to offer the lowest price. You do not have to offer the lowest price. Okay, there's a lot of people who enjoy paying high prices for things that they find worth it, right? Otherwise, Louis Vuitton would not be a person in business, right? It's just a purse, but it feels good to have that purse. All right. A marketing and sales strategy. There is a girl that we work with in Renaissance. She sells only by Instagram. She has this like super pizzazzy Instagram. Good for her, right? You and your network. Like, who do you know? Who do you make for? Your customer service, right? Cynthia, you said that you make one of a kind things. Well, that's a pretty awesome thing, right? That's a thing that maybe not everybody's doing, right? Speed of delivery, right? I need a hedgehog ornament tomorrow and I want it to be crocheted. Well, I could do that, right? Okay, that's be kind of insane, but like, let's say that's a nice thing you could do. Your ease of use or your ease of access. Now, Etsy kind of helps with that, right? But you do want to ease the buyer experience for people. Your brand, right? As you build your business, you can build a really cool brand. I like watching businesses like carve out their niche. And when you see the things come up in multiple contexts, it's just amazing. Your mission. We have a woman in Renaissance who makes eco-friendly bird greeting cards, bird-themed greeting cards. And her mission is not only to make them eco-friendly and bird-themed, but her mission is to also give the money back to bird protection organizations. And like, that's a really cool mission, right? It doesn't have to be the same thing, but you could also make an all new, never seen before product, right? Combining all the things that you have done, making something beautiful, and really creating something that is awesome. All right. About your products, the things that you're making, I want you to think about at least one thing that separates you from others, one thing that is special about what you offer. And as it says, hopefully you have many that you can identify. I assume that many of you do. All right, I'm going to put the screen back up, but I want you to write down at least one unique value proposition that you offer. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to think through it, and I will drink some water. All right, if you're ready, go for it. Dawn, you are interested in everything. You've got your own business, coaching nonprofit. What's the creative business you want to start?
Sorry about that. I'm transitioning into the house.
No problem.
So I actually have it's not for me, my personal business, but I have a nonprofit that I recently began to teach people.
Oh shoot, we lost you.
Start the site where they can sell the shirts that they create.
Okay, so it's kind of thinking through how to help them think about their
Exactly.
business. Okay.
I want to bring in, entrepreneurs to teach them entrepreneurship, but then to help them start their own printing business.
Cool.
So I recently, in the beginning of COVID, I received a grant from Renaissance, and I used it to purchase equipment to teach young people how to start a business and to design t-shirts.
Cool. Very cool. All right. That's a unique value, right? Like I'll give you the tools. I'll give you the skills and the tools and you create the product. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I have not small businesses, but I have entrepreneurs who have invested for those who they'll present and pitch their ideas to the businesses, and then the top 3 will win a seed into their business to get them started.
Cool. All right. Anybody else want to share their unique value proposition?
I kind of have 2.
Great.
The first one is that I come from a Southeastern tribe, and there's not a lot of Southeastern beaders that like offer their beadwork, or that kind of like, it's mostly like, people's aunties and grandmas and moms. So that was like one of the big things for me that I noticed when I did start posting about my beadwork. And then the second big thing that I'm proud of is that I offer a sliding scale to Black, Brown, Indigenous, and like Two-Spirit or gay like relatives, basically, because I'm really focused on access, and I was really lucky to have like people to ask like where I could get materials and stuff like that. And it is kind of tedious out here because there's not a huge like, there's not a lot of like native focused stores or anything like that. Yeah, so just providing access.
Ironic given the history, but
Yeah.
you're in Oakland, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, if you were a South San Francisco person, we have an opportunity for you to sell, but I'll get to that,
Okay.
But I'll introduce you to somebody from Oakland who I think can help you with that. All right. Anybody else? Those are really good unique values.
Thank you.
I can speak again. So I have 2, I think, as well. The first one is that my art is pretty original. There's not a lot of people doing the type of printmaking that I do, which is it's a really ancient process. It's actually developed 300 years ago.
Wow.
And before photography as a way to document plants.
Is this the cyanotype?
No.
Okay.
No. Pre-cyanotype, actually.
Pre-cyanotype, okay.
Yeah. So there are some people, like I'm probably not attached or friends, whatever, with everyone on Instagram that's actually doing this type of work that I do, that post on Instagram. And there's very, very few of us. So
Cool.
I think that the originality of the art is one thing. And then secondly is my mission. So I use California natives, California cultivated and naturalized plants, and I'm on a mission to cure plant blindness, which is the inability to even see the plants in your environment. And it's something, it's a condition ubiquitous among urban people to not realize that there is plants a part of our environment. And so I do a lot of advocacy on that point as well.
Very cool. All right. And where are you from?
I'm in South San Francisco.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, Sorry, Alyssa. So I'm starting this economic advancement center, and we're going to have space for local entrepreneurs to sell at the new center, which is why I'm asking. Because I'm like, oh, maybe this is a place, but Alyssa, I can't have you, but I can have you come to a marketplace. All right, Steph, how about you?
Um, because I concern environment, being a Bay Area resident, also being a Californian, is like environment means a lot to me. So the reason why I got into this sewing the bags or doing something, making these things, is because I want to upcycle all the fabric. San Francisco, there's lots of designer house, and once they finish their project or their whatever for the consumer, there are lots of small pieces they just throw away to the landfill. Fortunately, I know a lady, she collects all those things, so I just buy from her. And then those fabric, you have to see it. It's beautiful. They make for furniture, they make for drips, but some is just a natural like fabric, silk, linen, or mixed, and designs unbelievable. I never seen all those good design, like
Yeah.
So, but the most fun part is I don't like to use the big piece of fabric. I like to use the scraps. The scraps.
I think that's that is a really good unique value proposition, right? It's like I'm taking what's left and making something beautiful out of it.
Right. And years ago, I saw a company, I think in San Francisco, started a long time ago. They collected the billboard, the fabric, they make a gym bag, quite expensive, like $100 or something. But it's because they're artistic, the value they put into it is very pretty and very unique. Each bag is unique. So I want to do something like that. The reason I like the scripts is more fun because you put all those, according to my taste together. And once I make it, if somebody like it, like my daughter's friend, she picked 2 bags from my daughter's collection. She really liked it. And I was curious which one she picked. And later she sent me a photo, use upcycle fabric to make a jacket, whatever.
Wow.
This,
yeah.
So anyway, so
no,
I thought
it's about taking what's left and making something new out of it, something that is unique and designed, right? I mean, that's
right. Also, the small fabric, people don't like to use them because you cannot make much out of it. And I doing probably right now, I'm already made over 50 bags or whatever, but I'll give away. I was thinking if I can sell them, I just donate to my church so they can do fundraising or whatever. But I found a Japanese, again, like origami. So I can make origami bag, which is very twisting, and you won't tell the fabric is pieces together. It's very unique and pretty. So I thought probably, and also lots of young people, they like to protect the environment and they advocate for those. And I think it's good. Even I give them for free. It doesn't cost me much. Those fabrics very cheap. So
well, but that's actually, one of the things you're saying, if this is something that you pursue and you become bigger, this actually applies for a number of you. You can become a certified green business, right? Because that's also a selling point, is that I am recycling, I am reducing, I am reusing. I am not just taking stuff that is first cut. I am preserving this and saying, this is a green business. And that can also be a selling point for a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay, that's all.
That's great. Anybody else? If not, that's okay. All right. If you're not sharing, that's okay. I just want you to start thinking about it, okay? Because the pieces that come next are, okay, so you have this really wonderful product. To whom are you selling it, right? Steph is talking about worst case scenario. She gives it away, right? You just might have really beautiful art in your house, and that's fine too. But if you do decide you want to start selling it, you need to think about to whom. All right. And so you may have a few different customer segments, which are portions of the whole target market, right? And the reason that we have them separate is because you're going to have to sell to them differently, and you need to know different things about them, right? So if you're selling directly to a consumer, right? So if you go into a shop and your product is there, that's actually not even direct to consumer. If you're selling on Instagram, or if you're selling on Etsy, if you're selling on Wix or WordPress, your own website, right? Then you need to understand the consumer. Who am I targeting? And what do they need or want, right? If you're selling business to business, and most of you will not be selling business to business, but let's assume that you had a pottery business and you were selling to a restaurant. This would be, actually, that would still be business to consumer. I'm trying to think of a business to business situation. I can only think of like consulting examples as business to business. Like if you're serving clients through a client, you're not going to be selling business to business. Okay, so we'll just leave this as an example off. But the other one would be selling a channel partnership, right? Which is selling to a store that sells your product. So if you are selling wholesale to a store, like a boutique, or it's just going to be a boutique probably, then you need to not only understand the consumer, right, which is who you want to reach, but you need to understand their business, who they're trying to reach, and the individual buyer. Okay, so if I go into a store and I don't know that the individual buyer loves the color blue, or they're only looking for products that are under $35, then I'm not going to make that sale, right? And so knowing not only the store itself, but the buyer and then the eventual consumer is also really important when you understand the channel the channel partnership. Latifa, you had it looked like you were going to say something about the B2B. I'm still trying to think of a craft business that sells B2B. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah, I was thinking about people, but it looks like my example that I was thinking is actually a channel partnership, like an individual who makes like surface patterns and then sells it to some clothing company who will then use that pattern for clothing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that could be B2B, right? Like if you were if you were the designer that they then designed and then they manufactured it, that could be. Or if you printed, for example, your own fabric, right? If you printed your own fabric, then that could also be a good example of B2B, because you'd be selling to a business that was going to use that fabric, something like that. Yeah, those are good examples. Okay, good. So we have some of those. All right. And so when we're thinking about this, our customer segments, when we're thinking about B2C, which is what most of you are going to be selling, or channel partnerships, when you're thinking about your consumer, you got to think about the consumer from a lot of different perspectives. All right. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, and that's, Cynthia just made a really interesting comment. You can't undercut yourself, right? Price doesn't have to be the only differentiator for your business, right? And I think that is a really disappointing story, because then you would just not be doing it for fun anymore, and it would be just a loss, and it would be frustrating. All right, so when you think about your consumers, you want to think about demographics first, right? How old is this person? What's their gender? What's their income? What's their geographic location, right? If you are focused on hyper-local businesses, that's great. But you need to know who within that hyper-local space is going to be buying your product, okay? Think about their interests. What do they like to do? How do they spend their time, right? What is their job type? What is their educational level? Those things tend to influence the things that we like to buy, right? I am a hyper local shopper. All right. I almost never shop at big stores. And then I say that and I went to Target and PetSmart today. But that's besides the point. Okay. Like I try not to. I seek out small business first. And I'm willing to pay a little extra when I can get something from a small business. All right. So what are my hobbies? Well, I like making those things, right? I like crafting. And so if you're thinking about how to sell to somebody like me, it might be a little bit easier than somebody who's trying to buy, you know, really cheap printed shirts like Tommy Bahama, right? They're spending motivation. Steph, you mentioned that the Japanese origami bags are really trendy right now. That's an important thing, right? If that's a trend and people like to be trendy, then that's a cool thing that you can produce, right? Durability or longevity, newness, uniqueness, right? Okay, Denise, I'm going to learn how to say it. Hold on a second. Amigurumi, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Those are really cute. And they are unique, right? It's not something that you're finding on every shop here, right? Especially when it's handcrafted. And crochet, as you know, cannot be mass produced, right? So that's an extra uniqueness. There's always going to be something that's different between each piece, right? You can think about your consumers as, okay, how do they like to buy? Do they like to come and touch things? Do they like to see things in person? Do they like to know who's making them? Do they like to go to specific boutiques? And it's really important for them to find the things that they get in that boutique because they love that boutique for whatever reason, right? Do they like buying in chain stores? That's also okay. There's no moral judgments here, right? It's just that it's a different kind of customer. All right. And then your engagement preferences. How are you going to find these people, right? Is it through online advertising? Is it through Instagram? Is it through ads on Instagram? Are you emailing them? Are you mailing them, right? I get the Val pack of coupons every week. The businesses that are in there are different types of businesses than the businesses I see on Instagram. All right, maybe people want to be called. If they're a millennial, they don't, but let's say they did, right? Maybe they want to have a conversation with you in social media. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that you can think about who is your consumer, who is your buyer, right? When you're thinking about the B2B piece, I put this in here because I was assuming that we would find some examples, and we did. But what we think about is firmographics, all right? How much money do they have to spend on these things? All right, what is their number of employees? Are you going to be spending, like this could be a good example. It would be like making Christmas presents for a business to give out. Like if Genentech wanted to give Christmas presents to all its employees, that would be a good example of B2B because you're not going to the consumer directly, you're going to the business. So if you're crafting Christmas presents or, annual gifts, right? What should that look like? What kind of products should you make for them? What is the average age of management? What is the average age of the people working there? How long have they been in business? What's their industry? What's their geographic location? Right? And when you think about the person buying, this is also important. Can they actually make the decision? Or are they going to have to go up the chain and ask for a lot more advice? What is the budget that they have? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to be eco-friendly while spending less than $2? Are they trying to buy something that is completely representative of the company that is XXX? Like these things are things that the person who's planning it is thinking about. And again, they're also thinking about motivation of spending, right? Trendiness, durability, longevity, newness, uniqueness. It's the same reason why we all get water bottles from big corporations for any holidays, right? It's because it's easy. You can't offend anybody, and it feels like you're spending money on a thing that's good for the environment because we can all drink water out of water bottles. All right. But when you do sell to businesses, These are the things that you need to think about, right? And then you've got your channel partnership, which is, again, I think I accidentally deleted that slide and I don't know why, but I'll put it in before I send it to you. The channel partnership is really about, okay, combination of the two. This store that I want to sell at, who are their customers? But also, what is their motivation, right? What do they need to achieve by putting my product on the shelf? Is it going to allow them to advertise that they have a local producer? Is it going to be a new product that they don't sell yet that could bring some new clients in? Is it that you're using a product or that they really like to support? Is it handmade and they are just committed to handmade, right? Is it a vegan shop and they want to make sure that everything that is made in there is made without animal products? So you have to think about, who is this wholesaler, right? Who is the buyer of that company? And how can I get there? And I will say, Renaissance has a couple of really good classes coming up on wholesaling. We have one class on wholesaling. It's on February 17th. And in the summary email, I'll sail that out. So if you have an idea of doing a channel partnership, that might be an opportunity for you. I'll just write this down that I need to send that out. All right, so why does it matter? Let's come back to the customer segment conversation. Why does it matter? It's because, of course, it's possible that you'll sell your product to more than one customer segment, right? Steph, I like your example of, I like giving these pieces to my daughter's friends, but also I would give them to the people that I go to church with. Those are probably two different people, right? They are
already
probably
did.
so right. So they're people who have different motivations, right? And they're going to give you different feedback about your product. They're going to be like, it's like a mom, right? A mom is like, I love how roomy this bag is. And a girl who goes to the club is like, I like how tiny this bag is, right? Different motivations, right? And so when we're thinking about our customer segment, if you are thinking about how to meet that customer where they are, you should put them in different segments if they want different versions of your product or your service. All right. So I'll come back to Cynthia or to Elisa. You may have a thing that you make standard, right? I make earrings that look like this. I make knitted hats that look like this. And if somebody comes to you and says, well, I want earrings with a slightly different pattern and this many colors, then you're going to charge differently and you're going to treat that customer differently than the person who just buys off the shelf, right? Same with any sort of commissioned products, right? It's not that you should treat them better or worse. It's just that you're going to have a different experience with each one of those people, right? You will probably reach them with different channels, right? You're going to reach millennials on Instagram. You're going to reach Generation X on Facebook. You're going to reach what is the current Gen? Gen Z. You'll reach them at pop-ups on the weekend or on TikTok, right? So how do you want to find people? It matters, right? If you're thinking about your ideal customer and you're thinking about, who is this person that I want to sell to, you want to think about, how am I going to reach them? All right. These people require different types of customer relationships. All right. Again, if I am buying a present for my aunt, I wouldn't just buy her a print. I would buy her a framed print. All right. And then you're going to have follow-up questions of like, well, do you want matting? Do you want different colors? What kind of this? And all of a sudden, that customer relationship is a different customer relationship than, I want an 18 by 24 print of this piece, or I want a blanket that is this much by this much, right? Those are different types of customer relationships, and they're going to have different conversations. and you're going to talk to them in a different way. So I think this is when I come back to the marketing piece. It's about how you talk to this person, right? Because they're probably willing to pay for different aspects of what you offer, right? You might have a standard product, and then you might be able to do something that makes it special for that particular person. So this could be like an engraving. It could be using a picture as an example, right? It could be using particular colors that that person likes. Even if it's not customized, it's still the same product, but you're using different colors. So again, I'm willing to pay extra if I get to choose the colors. Maybe somebody else isn't, right? But if I am willing to, you should take advantage of that, right? It's probably not that much more work for you to figure out the different color. And then the different profitability potential. So for example, if you're telling to individuals versus groups or clubs, there's a really successful Etsy seller from Daly City, and she sells Greek letter decals. And this woman has like several thousand in sales. And I think she only does it as a part-time business. I think she's a nurse in her day job. And I'm just like, wow, how did you? And then I thought, oh God, well, she doesn't have to sell to an individual, right? She gets to go to a sorority and say, hey, look at this cute Greek letter I made for you. And in that sorority, and every single person in that house is buying something for it. Wow. All right. That's a lot of money, right? Groups and clubs buy in bulk, right? If I have a networking event that I'm running, I'm going to buy 15 or 20 things. Rather than me as an individual, I'm going to buy one thing. All right. So all of these can be different customer segments. And I think a really important example is actually another Renaissance client. I don't know if you guys have heard of Dragonfly Designs, but they do jewelry making kits. And you can do them as an individual, right? You can buy them on their website as an individual. You can buy them for birthday parties, right? And so they then have like a recorded video on how to do the art in it. And then they have a third customer segment, which is corporate deals, where they do corporate team building. Is their product different? No. They are making the same jewelry products, but the level of service that they're giving the corporate people, they come and run the workshop in person, they make sure that they send individual boxes, et cetera, et cetera. They make like 5 times as much on a corporate client than they do on an individual client. It doesn't mean that they didn't sell to the individual client. It just means that they were able to differentiate their product enough to sell to different customer segments. And so I think that that's a really important takeaway. You're going to have beautiful art, right? How do you get it in front of enough different types of people that it's profitable for you to sell it? And the other thing about customer segments is that a customer segment is not your entire target market, right? Like I said, you will probably have multiple customer segments, right? The Dragonfly has individuals, kids' birthday parties, and adult corporate team building. Each one of these could require different marketing strategies, different product types, different purchasing options, customer service channels, relationship levels. So they will create more work for you. All right. And so I'm going to go back to Cynthia because she wrote this and I have it in my mind. She says she's got an Etsy shop, she has an Instagram shop, and she has a Facebook shop, right? Which means that she, in her mind, even if she doesn't know it, has 3 different channels and 3 different customer segments that she's looking at selling to. That's a lot of time that she's going to have to spend on figuring out what to say to each person on each of those platforms. How do I reach the people on each of those platforms? I think that's really, really important, okay? Just to recognize it. Sometimes it's better just to focus on one. That doesn't mean you have to. It just means that you have to recognize that there is that piece. Okay, so, when I was running my business, TikTok had just come out, and we did have a lot of people who were on TikTok who came into our business. But I was like, These are teenagers. Teenagers do not have that much money, right? I need to still be targeting their parents. So when I thought about it and I said, should I create a channel and think about my customer segment who's my teenager, I still wasn't advertising to them, right? I was still advertising to their parents. So I think it's also thinking really about that. Okay, so the most important thing that we will do today is create that buyer persona. All right, I want you to think about one customer segment that is most likely to buy your product and service, and you're going to create that buyer persona. All right, this is a fictional representation of your ideal customer. I want you to imagine an actual person in your mind. I want you to give that person a name, right? We're going to talk about this, right? How old are they? What is their annual income? What are some other important demographics for that buyer's identity, right? Alyssa, I really loved that you said that you offer discounts or you offer supporting sliding scale for Black, Indigenous, people of color, people who are non-binary. Like, that's pretty cool. Okay, so that is a thing that, okay, if that's something is important to me, then that person I'm imagining should probably embody some of those traits, right? Are they tax savvy? What are their interests or hobbies? And when buying a product like yours, what are their top considerations or concerns? Is it quality? It is status? Is it price? All right, so I want you to spend at least 5 minutes really thinking about one person, one buyer persona that represents one customer segment, okay? If you are thinking about selling B2B, which I don't think any of us are at this point, if you're doing that, you also need to think about the firmographics. So what is the company that you're selling to, et cetera. But let's think about this B2C piece. All right, who is your person? All right, I'm going to put myself on mute and drink water again, and you're going to think about this. Oh, bummer. I see in the chat that the sewing machine is not currently usable. So fingers crossed that it becomes usable soon. That's good to know because I was thinking about signing up for the SSF Parks and Rec sewing class, but I don't yet have a sewing machine or a table that would be sufficient for sewing. So that's why I picked up crocheting, something you can do at home. And we have a really nice yarn shop in South City called Cottage Yarns.
You know, Amanda, I learned how to crochet several years ago, but I learned by watching YouTube.
Yep.
And that's exact. And once you know how to read a pattern, you can do anything.
Well, I still haven't learned that. And my other problem is that I frequently get lost when counting because I start thinking about something else. Then I'm like, how many stitches did I do already?
Stitch markers.
I've heard about this thing. What is
It's basically a plastic safety pin. And you put it in at the beginning of your row, or how many stitches in that you want to be, and so you can just go until you reach a stitch marker, and that's when you have to turn, or you have to join.
nice?
So stitch markers,
Awesome.
but you still make a ton of mistakes. Like I
Yeah,
make a ton of
probably,
mistakes,
but
but the good thing about crochet is that it's pretty forgiving, and like knitting.
it is pretty easy. Yeah, I was gonna say it is pretty easy to like undo
Yeah,
a couple of rows.
or
Is it
if
not
you
that
make
easy
a
in knitting?
small error, you can just like, I'll fix
Yeah.
it in the next row.
It's good to know. I have become, because I've knitted 2 baby hats now, I feel like I'm the master of, okay, so I watched a British lady video, and so it's the UK treble crochet, but
Oh,
the US double, I guess.
double crochet. Yeah.
Okay, continue thinking. I'm just going to tell you, I'll give you an example from my old business. So as I said, I had a paint your own pottery studio, and this was very new in Poland, and people weren't really sure what to think of it. And so I did not do a great job in the beginning with any sort of marketing or thinking about customer segmentation. I was like, oh, it's good for everybody. It's good for kids, it's good for adults, it's good for this, right? It wasn't really until I started doing ads that I really started thinking about who is the person that I'm selling to. And you shouldn't have to wait that long. You shouldn't wait that long to do it. But when you start doing it, I realized that I was looking at a woman who was between 35 and 45. That's one of my customer segments. She needed to be fairly well off because people were spending a lot on a mug that wasn't like a super like sturdy mug, okay? Because they were spending the time playing and doing it and creating it, right? So I'm like asking them to not only pay for the product itself, but for their own entertainment. So, in Poland, that looked like about 10,000 zloty a month. You needed to make about that much in order to really, really come regularly. It was for sure a woman. I wanted them to have kids, this particular customer segment, because then they would bring their kids in. In Poland, it's pretty mono-ethnic, so we didn't think about that a lot. But very interestingly, I could have done a whole different customer segment just on the expat population, right? Because I was an expat and people are very interested by the fact that I started my own business in Poland. And they liked that they could come in and know that everybody there also spoke English and not only Polish. That was very important for them. All right. And so that's actually a piece that can be really important in your product marketing is, can I provide service in a second language? Can I provide a different product in a second language? Is that a person that I really want to work with separately, right? Not in a way that like segregation, but just that they know that they could come and they would be able to speak English and get what they needed. And that was really nice for them. All right. Education level, typically they had graduated with their master's degree. So Poland has a very weird system. I was not advertising to people any further than about 5 miles from my shop's location. Not that I couldn't have done a little bit further, but there was enough people within that radius that I wasn't thinking any further than that. They could be married, but it didn't matter. It was more important that they had kids. Most of them loved being on Instagram and they followed home decorating Instagrams. All right. They loved having a beautiful home. It was like there's a whole like subculture. It's probably here too, but like in like having beautiful home and actually very often botanical prints. So Latifa, just a business in that. All right. And then when they were buying a product like mine, their top considerations is that even if I didn't have skill, I could make it beautiful. And so I had to have a lot of tools to be able to make it beautiful. Americans are totally different. I'm sure there are some Americans who really want to make really beautiful, paint your own pottery. But like Polish people were like, oh, this is going to be ugly. I can't even. I need to, I won't spend money for this. And I'm like, well, I don't know if you guys ever watched Portlandia. Let's put a bird on it. Right. So we had these like really nice silk screens and you made these really, really clean and crisp designs. And then people were satisfied. So if you made this design, then all of a sudden you had something really beautiful. I don't have any examples of this, but I will show you one thing that my husband painted. He is very talented. And so you also had to really spend a lot of time inspiring people. Where's my video? This is the problem with crafters, right? Everybody wants to show you the stuff that they do. But I am really proud of him. This is something that he made. And he hand painted this. And it says salt, but because we used to use it for our salt dish. But then we broke the lid. So now it's just a planter. But
That's
anyway,
beautiful.
Yeah, right? It is another example of Polish people like beautiful things. Again, not saying that Americans don't, but it just was a different market. Okay, so one of you, more of you, anybody who wants to share, I'd love to hear about one of your customer segments. All right, because that's just one of mine. One of my other customer segments was girls who just graduated college and like to hang out with their friends. A third customer segment was parents planning birthday parties. It's not the same parent who brings their kid in for painting on the weekend. All right. These are different people. People who come in for bachelorette parties. That's a different customer segment. All right. So one customer segment of yours. What do you think?
Yeah, I can go.
Great.
And it's really interesting to do this project, by the way.
Good.
So her name is Barbara. I don't know why, but that's her name. She's 40 years old, female, college educated. She lives in California, is urban, suburban, has an annual income about of $100,000 a year. I guess you kind of have to in California. She's fairly tech savvy. She is on Instagram. She knows and enjoys shopping online. She wish she had space to garden, but she doesn't. So she has a ton of houseplants. And her interests are tending to her plant babies. She enjoys the outdoors and hiking. She's not really artistic herself, but she's interested in having, original, beautiful wall art. of her favorite plants or the plants that she recognizes from her environment. And she's really interested in learning more about those plants in their history, their lore, their edibility, ethnobotany. Those things are interesting to her. So
Cool.
that's my person.
That sounds like a really great person to sell to. I mean, like, but I mean, also it gives you a lot of space to around which to build that selling point of like, how do I show that this is a product that can fit into my planty house, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. Anybody else? If nobody, that's okay. All right. It is something really important. And one thing that I will come back to is you don't have to figure it out all today, right? This is something that you can continue to work on. And if you are interested in having a one-on-one conversation with a marketing expert from our team, we can absolutely organize that. That's an absolutely easy thing to do to help you really get there further. So without that, what we're going to do next week is really talk about the platform itself, but then also start thinking about channels. And by channels, it's really about how do you build awareness of your product? How do you help the customer evaluate your product? How do you deliver that product? How do they pay for that product? And how do you make that transaction easy for them? And what is the follow-up customer service? So really thinking about that is the next piece. Sometimes Etsy makes that really easy, but sometimes Etsy makes it really difficult. And if you're not using Etsy, that's also okay. One thing I will say about Etsy, I have a friend who uses it, and she said that recently, and maybe it's changed now, but recently they made a change that they really promote sellers who offer free shipping. Okay, well, that's possible for some things, but it's also really tough for other people. You're going to need to adjust your pricing. It changes your evaluation of your structure. But if Etsy is promoting businesses that are selling with free shipping, right, you're going to have to change how you build your awareness of your product. So I think that that's a really important piece. We'll talk about that in depth next week. And then, as I said, the final week, we'll really be talking about other pieces. So yeah, free shipping on Etsy gets very expensive for the seller, right? And so you're going to need to change your pricing structure. You're going to need to figure it out. And maybe it means that Etsy's not the right platform for you, right? Maybe you need to go to a different platform, but that's okay. We'll talk about that more next week. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a general question. I was reading about deciding to use Etsy as a platform versus your own website as a platform. And from what I gathered, that if you don't already have a large following, that Etsy is probably a better platform to go with because it's an established marketplace as opposed to your website that no one knows about. So who would go to their website and to shop? What are your thoughts about that, starting on Etsy versus going off on your own?
I think it's very, yes, on point, right? If you have never started building a following, if you're not connected with other people, and we're going to talk a lot about key relationships and key activities in our third week as well. If you haven't already started to build some momentum around the brand, it can be easier on Etsy, but just being on Etsy isn't going to make your shop any more successful, if that makes sense, right? You're still going to have to do all the other work to build the momentum, because otherwise unless you are really good at choosing hashtags, which we will also talk about next week, and writing your product descriptions so that when I search for botanical prints, like yours comes up higher than somebody else. I think that's a really important piece. And we'll talk a little bit about making it more visible on Etsy, but you can do the same thing with your own website as long as you can optimize the search engine optimization. It's just a matter of, if I Google botanical prints on Google, is your website going to come near the top? Or some of your other materials? Maybe not at this point, right?
Yeah, no,
And
totally
that's okay. And that's okay, right? Then you may have a better chance of starting with Etsy, continuing to build that brand, and then moving over to your own platform eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what SEO really stands for. I mean, I know what it stands for, but I don't know what it does, or I'm still very new, basically.
That's okay. We'll talk a little bit about it next week, but like, again, if you're interested, we have a lot of classes on that kind of stuff too.
Okay, great.
I think that Etsy is a very good place to start. It is also a place where people start to think, oh, I want something handmade. And they go there first. I think that it is a platform that a lot of people know. So I think it's a very good place to start. All right. Google one-click. Yes, I will look into that more. That was not as part of what I had looked into. But I will look into it and see if I can add some information about that when we talk about it next week. Okay, Kenny has added a link to the chat, which is about some books that I had found that are all about starting your own craft business and creative business.
Yeah.
So this is, if you really like reading, then there's some resources available to you on how to start your own business.
Yeah, these are all books that are available in the Peninsula Library System, with which the South San Francisco Library is a part of. We have a lot of these books on our shelves, but the ones that we don't, you can put a hold on and have them sent to our library or any library in the Peninsula. So yeah, if you're just looking for further reading from what you've learned in this class, you can consult this list. Yeah, just
cool. Yeah, there's a couple of things on here that I hadn't even thought about, but will be part of your conversation, especially in costs, is like the showing and selling your crafts, packaging your crafts. Like how do you package them for sale to make sure that they stay safe and also represent your brand, right? So again, we'll come back to the buyer persona a lot. So if you haven't written it down, that's okay. You have a week to work on it more. If you want to think of a couple of different buyer personas between now and then, that's also great. Like I said, it is something that we will come back to again and again, because it is kind of the foundation of your business. Besides the product you make, it's who's buying it, right? I don't want to get all like capitalist on y'all, but without a buyer, there's no business. So think about that through the next week, and then we will see each other next Monday. If you have any questions, Kenny will send out this recording. I will send a couple other things that I think might be of interest for you to him to send out. So that Kenny, I may take a couple days on that. I have a really busy tomorrow, so probably look for that Wednesday morning. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, great.
All right.
So see you next
Thank
week.
you.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and hope everyone had a good time at the class.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.